Before we begin, what would you do if one of the richest women in the world walked into your life, offered you everything money could buy, but wanted the one thing you could never put a price on, your child? Stay until the very end of this story because the final moment, the very last words this single father speaks, will leave you breathless. Trust me, you will not see it coming. If stories like this move your heart, go ahead and hit that like button right now and subscribe to this channel so you never miss a story that reminds you what it truly means to be human. Now, let's begin. The morning sun had barely cracked through the blinds of the small apartment on Elm Street when the alarm clock buzzed at 5:15. Marcus Reed didn't need the alarm. He had already been awake for 20 minutes, lying in the dark, staring at the ceiling, mentally running through the list of things he needed to accomplish before the day even properly started. Pack Lily's lunch. Iron her school uniform. Check if there was enough milk for her cereal. Make sure her permission slip was signed for the field trip on Friday. Drop her off at school by 7:45. Get to the construction site by 8. Work a 10-hour shift. Pick her up from the after-school program by 6. Cook dinner. Help with homework. Bath time. Story time. Bedtime. And then, maybe, just maybe, he would have 45 minutes to himself before exhaustion dragged him under. Marcus was 31 years old. He had thick, calloused hands from years of construction work, a jaw that always seemed clenched from carrying too much weight on his shoulders, and deep brown eyes that softened completely the moment his daughter walked into the room. Lily was 6. She had her mother's curly hair, her father's stubborn chin, and a laugh that sounded like wind chimes on a summer porch. She was everything good that had ever happened to Marcus, and she was the reason he got out of bed every single morning, no matter how heavy his bones felt. Lily's mother, Janine, had left when Lily was 14 months old. There was no dramatic fight. No screaming match in the kitchen. Just a note on the counter one Tuesday morning that said, "I'm not built for this. I'm sorry. Don't come looking for me." And she was gone. Marcus had stood in the kitchen holding that note in one hand and a crying baby in the other, and in that moment, something inside him both broke and solidified at the same time. The part of him that believed in fairy tales broke. The part of him that was a father turned to steel. For 5 years, he had done it alone. No parents to help, his mother had passed from cancer when he was 23, and his father had never been in the picture. No siblings. A few friends who tried to help when they could, but everyone had their own lives, their own struggles. Marcus and Lily were a team of 2, and he had made peace with that. More than peace. He had made it sacred. He rolled out of bed, pulled on a worn t-shirt, and padded down the narrow hallway to Lily's room. He pushed the door open gently. She was curled up like a little shrimp, her stuffed elephant Mr. Wrinkles tucked under her chin, her mouth slightly open. He stood there for a moment, just watching her breathe. This was his favorite part of every day. This quiet moment before the world rushed in. This proof that something pure and perfect existed and it was his to protect. "Hey, Lilybug," he whispered, kneeling beside her bed. "Time to wake up, sweetheart." She stirred, scrunched her nose, and then opened one eye. "5 more minutes, Daddy. You said that yesterday. And the day before. And the day before that. Because I always need 5 more minutes." He laughed softly and kissed her forehead. "Tell you what. You get up now, and I'll make the pancakes with the smiley face." Both eyes opened. With the blueberry eyes? With the blueberry eyes. She was up in seconds. Their morning routine was a choreographed dance they had perfected over years. Marcus moved through the tiny kitchen with efficiency, flipping pancakes while simultaneously packing a peanut butter and jelly sandwich into Lily's lunchbox. Lily sat at the small table, swinging her legs, chattering about a dream she had where Mr. Wrinkles could fly. Marcus listened to every word as if she were delivering the most important speech in history. Because to him, she was. They left the apartment at 7:20. Marcus drove a 12-year-old pickup truck that made a concerning rattling sound every time he turned left, but it ran, and that was what mattered. He held Lily's hand as they walked from the parking lot to the entrance of Greenfield Elementary, and when she hugged him goodbye, she squeezed so hard he could feel it in his ribs. "Love you, Daddy. Love you more, Lilybug. Love you most." "Impossible." She grinned and ran inside, her backpack bouncing with every step. He watched until she disappeared through the doors, and then he stood there for an extra few seconds, the way he always did, just to make sure the world hadn't swallowed her up. Then he got back in his truck and drove to the construction site on 4th and Broadway, where he spent the next 10 hours hauling steel beams, pouring concrete, and pretending his lower back didn't ache like it belonged to a man twice his age. It was a Thursday in late October when everything changed. Marcus was on his lunch break, sitting on an overturned bucket, eating a ham sandwich he had made at 5:30 that morning, when his foreman, Big Ray, walked over with a strange expression on his face. "Marcus, there's a woman here asking for you." Marcus frowned. "Asking for me? Who?" "I don't know, man. But she pulled up in a car that costs more than my house. Maybe more than this whole block." Marcus wiped his hands on his jeans and walked toward the entrance of the site. He saw the car first. A sleek black Mercedes Maybach, so polished it looked like liquid obsidian under the October sun. A driver in a fitted suit stood by the rear door. And leaning against the car, scrolling through her phone with the casual boredom of someone who owned the world, was a woman. She was tall, maybe 5'9", with sharp cheekbones and platinum blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun. She wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than Marcus made in 3 months, and her heels were so high and so thin they looked like weapons. Everything about her screamed money, power, and a complete unfamiliarity with places like this construction site. She looked up from her phone and locked eyes with Marcus. Her gaze was appraising, clinical, the way someone might look at a piece of real estate they were considering purchasing. "Marcus Reed?" she asked. Her voice was smooth, controlled, like a news anchor delivering a story about someone else's tragedy. "That's me. Can I help you?" "My name is Victoria Ashford." The name hit him like a gust of wind. Everyone knew that name. Victoria Ashford, CEO of Ashford Global Industries, one of the largest conglomerates in the country. Hotels, tech companies, media outlets, real estate empires, she had her fingerprints on half the economy. Forbes had her net worth listed at somewhere around $4.7 billion. She was 43 years old, had never been married, and was known in business circles as the Glacier because of her cold, calculating negotiation style that left competitors frozen in their tracks. And she was standing at his construction site. "I know who you are," Marcus said slowly. "What I don't know is why you're here. I have a proposition for you, Mr. Reed. Is there somewhere we can talk privately?" Marcus looked around. The construction site was all open air, dust, and steel. "This is about as private as it gets for me." A flicker of something, discomfort, maybe, crossed her face, but she recovered quickly. "Very well. I'll be direct. I've spent the last 18 months working with the finest fertility specialists in the world. I've explored every option available to modern medicine. IVF, surrogacy, egg donors, the full spectrum. Every attempt has failed. My doctors have told me that, due to certain medical complications, carrying a child to term is no longer a viable option for me." Marcus said nothing. He wasn't sure where this was going, but something in his gut told him he wasn't going to like it. Victoria continued, her tone as steady as a boardroom presentation. "I want to be a mother, Mr. Reed. It is the one thing my money has not been able to give me, and I am not accustomed to accepting defeat. I have spent considerable resources researching alternative paths to parenthood. Adoption is a lengthy, complicated process, and frankly, I want a child that I have chosen, not one assigned to me by a bureaucratic system. I'm sorry to hear about your situation, Marcus said, and he meant it. But I still don't understand what this has to do with me. Victoria straightened up and looked at him with the same expression she probably wore when she was about to acquire a company. I've done extensive research on you, Mr. Reed. Your background, your history, your character. You're a single father raising a 6-year-old daughter. You work 60-hour weeks on a construction site. You live in a 700-square-foot apartment in a neighborhood that has one of the highest crime rates in the city. You drive a vehicle that should have been scrapped 3 years ago. You have $1,100 in your savings account and roughly $4,000 in credit card debt. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. You had no right to. I had every right to conduct due diligence on a potential arrangement, she interrupted coolly. Let me finish. Despite your financial limitations, you have raised an extraordinary child. Lily's teachers describe her as bright, compassionate, and remarkably well-adjusted. Her pediatric records show she has never missed a vaccination, never missed a checkup. You volunteer at her school when your schedule permits. You have turned down overtime pay to attend her school events. By every measurable standard, you are an exceptional father. Marcus felt a strange mixture of pride and violation. She had looked into his life, his daughter's life, without his knowledge or consent, and she was reciting the details back to him like items on a spreadsheet. Get to the point, he said quietly. Victoria took a breath. It was the first time she had shown anything resembling hesitation. I want your daughter, Mr. Reed. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap that hadn't finished echoing. Excuse me? Marcus's voice dropped to something low and dangerous. I want to adopt Lily. I am prepared to offer you $5 million in exchange for full legal custody. She would have access to the finest education, the best healthcare, opportunities that you, with all due respect, could never provide. She would travel the world. She would want for nothing. I would give her the life that every child deserves. Marcus stared at her. For a long moment, the only sound was the distant clang of steel beams being moved on the other side of the site and the dull roar of traffic beyond the fence. Then he laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh that comes out when something is so absurd, so profoundly offensive, that your body doesn't know how else to respond. You came here, he said slowly, his voice trembling with a fury he was barely containing, to my job, to offer me money, for my daughter. I understand this is unexpected. Unexpected? Marcus took a step forward. Not threatening, but firm. The kind of step a man takes when he wants you to understand that you have crossed a line that should never have been approached. Lady, I don't care if you're worth $5 billion or $50 billion. My daughter is not for sale. Not for $5 million. Not for $500 million. Not for every dollar on this planet. She is my child. She is my heart walking around outside my body. And the fact that you thought you could drive up here in your fancy car and buy her like she's a piece of property tells me everything I need to know about you. Victoria's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted. A crack in the glacier. Mr. Reed, I understand your emotional reaction, but I urge you to think rationally. What kind of life can you give her? You live paycheck to paycheck. One injury on this job site and you lose everything. One medical emergency and you're bankrupt. I'm offering her stability. Security. A future. You're offering her a transaction, Marcus shot back. A kid doesn't need a penthouse and a private jet. A kid needs someone who shows up. Every day. No matter what. Someone who reads them the same bedtime story 4 nights in a row because it's their favorite. Someone who learns how to braid hair from YouTube videos at midnight because their daughter wants to look like the other girls at school. Someone who holds them when they cry and doesn't check their watch to see if they have a meeting. That's what a parent is. And no amount of money makes you one. Victoria opened her mouth to respond, but Marcus wasn't finished. You did all this research on me. You know my savings account balance. You know my credit card debt. You probably know what I had for breakfast. But you missed the most important thing. You missed the part where Lily draws me a picture every single day. Every single day, Ms. Ashford. Sometimes it's a house, sometimes it's a rainbow, sometimes it's just a bunch of scribbles. But in every single picture, there are two people. Her and me. That's her world. And you want to rip that apart because you decided you want a child the way you want a new company? No. Absolutely not. Now please leave. Victoria stood very still. The driver shifted uncomfortably by the car. A long silence stretched between them, filled with the noise of the city and the weight of everything Marcus had just said. Then, without another word, Victoria Ashford turned, got into her car, and was driven away. Marcus stood there until the car disappeared around the corner. Then he sat down on a stack of lumber, put his head in his hands, and let his body shake. Not from fear. Not from anger, exactly. But from the raw, overwhelming force of loving someone so much that the mere suggestion of losing them felt like a threat to his very existence. He didn't tell anyone about the encounter. Not Big Ray. Not his friend Deshawn, who he sometimes watched football with on Sundays. Not anyone. He picked Lily up from the after-school program that evening, cooked spaghetti for dinner, helped her with her spelling words, gave her a bath, read her Goodnight Moon for the 400th time, and tucked her in with Mr. Wrinkles. He stood in her doorway for a long time that night, watching her sleep, feeling something primal and fierce burning in his chest. She was his. And nothing and no one would ever change that. But Victoria Ashford was not a woman who accepted no. 3 days later, Marcus found an envelope slipped under his apartment door. Inside was a letter on heavy cream-colored stationery with the Ashford Global Industries letterhead. The letter was from a law firm, Bennett, Strauss, and Whitfield, and it informed Marcus that their client was prepared to increase the offer to $10 million. The letter went on to detail the educational opportunities, travel experiences, and material advantages that would be available to Lily. It concluded by stating that if Mr. Reed wished to discuss the matter further, he could contact the firm at his convenience. Marcus tore the letter in half, then in quarters, then dropped it in the trash. A week after that, a woman showed up at Lily's school. She introduced herself to the principal as a child welfare consultant, conducting a routine evaluation. She asked questions about Lily's home environment, her father's work schedule, whether the child ever seemed hungry or tired or improperly dressed. The principal, Mrs. Delgado, found the visit odd and called Marcus immediately. Marcus left the construction site without clocking out. He drove to the school in 12 minutes, a drive that usually took 20. When he arrived, the woman was gone, but Mrs. Delgado described her, tall, professional, carrying a leather portfolio with gold initials. "Marcus, is everything okay?" Mrs. Delgado asked, concern etched on her face. "Yeah," he said, though his hands were shaking. "Everything's fine." But it wasn't fine. Victoria Ashford was escalating. She was probing, testing, looking for cracks. And Marcus knew, with a sickening certainty, that when you were worth nearly $5 billion, you didn't just have money, you had influence. Lawyers, judges, social workers, politicians. The kind of people who could make a single father's life very difficult if the right pressure was applied. That night, after Lily was asleep, Marcus sat at the kitchen table and stared at his phone. He didn't have a lawyer. He didn't have connections. He had his two hands, his work ethic, and his love for his daughter. Against a billionaire, those things felt like a paper shield against a hurricane. He called Deshawn. "Man, I need your help," Marcus said, and for the first time, his voice cracked. Deshawn Williams had been Marcus's best friend since high school. He worked as a paralegal at a small law firm downtown, and while he wasn't a lawyer himself, he knew the legal system well enough to be dangerous. When Marcus told him what had happened, Deshawn was quiet for a long time. She actually said she wanted to buy Lily? Deshawn finally asked. Those were her exact words. I want your daughter. Like she was ordering something from a catalog. Marcus, that's not just offensive. That's potentially illegal. You can't buy a child. That's not adoption. That's trafficking. She framed it as an adoption. A private adoption with financial compensation. Yeah, that's still shady as hell. And this thing at the school? Sending someone to snoop around? That's harassment. Maybe intimidation. We need to document everything. Every contact, every letter, every weird visit. And we need to get you a real lawyer. I can't afford a real lawyer, Deshawn. Let me make some calls. There are people who do pro bono work, especially for cases like this. Single dad being pressured by a billionaire? That's the kind of case a good attorney takes for the principle of it. True to his word, Deshawn made calls. Within 48 hours, he connected Marcus with an attorney named Sandra Okafor. She was in her 50s, sharp as a blade, with 30 years of family law experience and a reputation for fighting hard for parents who couldn't fight for themselves. She had taken on powerful people before, and she wasn't intimidated by money or name recognition. Sandra met Marcus at a coffee shop near his apartment on a Saturday morning. Lily was at a playdate with a girl from her class, and Marcus sat across from Sandra, clutching his coffee like a life preserver. Tell me everything, Sandra said. From the beginning. Don't leave anything out. Marcus told her. The visit to the construction site. The offer. The letter. The woman at the school. Sandra listened without interrupting, her expression growing more severe with every detail. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair. Mr. Reed, what Victoria Ashford is doing is predatory. She may not have broken any specific law yet, but she is walking a very thin line. Sending someone to your daughter's school to gather information without your consent is a significant overstep. And the repeated contact after you've clearly refused her offer constitutes harassment. What can I do? First, we send a cease and desist letter. On record. Through my firm. We make it clear that any further contact with you, your daughter, or any institution connected to your daughter, school, pediatrician, anything, will result in legal action. Second, we document everything and build a file. If she escalates, we're ready. Marcus nodded. And if the cease and desist doesn't stop her? Sandra looked at him steadily. Then we fight. And I promise you, Mr. Reed, I don't lose when I'm fighting for the right side. The cease and desist letter was sent the following Monday. For 2 weeks, there was silence. Marcus allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, Victoria Ashford had moved on to her next conquest, her next acquisition. Maybe she had found another child, another family to target. The thought made him sick, but it also brought a selfish, guilty relief. Then, on a Wednesday evening, as Marcus was washing the dinner dishes while Lily colored at the kitchen table, there was a knock at the door. Marcus dried his hands and opened it. Victoria Ashford stood in his hallway. She was dressed more casually than before, dark jeans, a simple black blouse, flat shoes. No driver visible. No entourage. She looked different. Smaller, somehow. The armor of power and wealth seemed thinner tonight. Before you close the door, she said quickly, I'm not here to make an offer. I'm not here with lawyers or consultants or any agenda. I need to talk to you. Please. Every instinct told Marcus to close the door. But something in her voice, something raw and unguarded, made him pause. He glanced back at Lily, who was absorbed in her coloring, tongue poking out in concentration. 5 minutes, he said. In the hallway. He stepped out and pulled the door mostly closed behind him, leaving it cracked so he could hear Lily if she called for him. Victoria leaned against the wall across from him. Up close, without the armor of her corporate persona, he noticed things he hadn't noticed before. The dark circles under her eyes that concealer couldn't quite hide. The way her hands trembled slightly before she clasped them together. The faint redness around her eyes that suggested she had been crying recently and trying very hard to pretend she hadn't. "I received your lawyer's letter," she said. "I want you to know that I've pulled back. No more letters. No more visits to the school. I've called off everything." "Good. But I needed to come here myself. Not as a CEO. Not as Victoria Ashford, the name on the building. Just as a person. Because I owe you an explanation." Marcus crossed his arms but didn't speak. He waited. Victoria took a shaky breath. "When I was 26 years old, I was pregnant. I was at the beginning of my career. I had just taken over the company from my father, who had run it into near bankruptcy with his gambling and his affairs. The board didn't trust me. The investors were circling like vultures. I was fighting for the survival of everything my grandmother had built. She was the one who started Ashford Industries, not my father, despite what the press says. And in the middle of all of that, I found out I was going to have a baby." She paused. The trembling in her hands spread to her voice. "The father was a man I loved very much. David. He was a teacher. A high school history teacher. He didn't care about the money or the company. He just cared about me. And when I told him about the baby, he was overjoyed. He wanted to get married. He wanted a family. He wanted everything." Marcus felt the shift in the air. He could feel the story turning toward darkness. "I told him I couldn't. Not then. The company was hemorrhaging money, and if I stepped away even for a few months, the board would replace me, and everything my grandmother built would be gone. I told David I needed to wait. Just a year or two. Get the company stable, and then we could have everything." He was heartbroken, but he understood. Or at least he tried to. Victoria's eyes were glistening now, but she held the tears back with the kind of practiced control that comes from years of refusing to show weakness. "I terminated the pregnancy. It was the hardest decision I have ever made, and I have made decisions that affected thousands of people's livelihoods. But I told myself it was temporary. That I would come back to it. That David and I would have our family when the time was right." She swallowed hard. The time was never right. There was always another crisis, another acquisition, another quarter to close. David waited for 3 years. Then he stopped waiting. He married someone else. A woman who was ready when he was. They have 4 children now. I've seen the photos. They look happy. Marcus uncrossed his arms. Not because his anger had disappeared, but because something else was growing alongside it. Something uncomfortably close to empathy. "For the next 15 years, Victoria continued, I buried myself in work. I told myself that the company was enough. That success was enough. That being on the cover of Forbes was enough. And then my grandmother died. She was 91. I was holding her hand in the hospital, and the last thing she said to me was, Vicky, buildings don't hold your hand when you're dying. People do. I hope you find your people before it's too late." A single tear escaped and ran down Victoria's cheek. She wiped it away quickly, almost angrily. "After the funeral, I started the fertility treatments. All of them. One after another. Each failure felt like the universe confirming what I already feared, that I had made my choice all those years ago, and now I had to live with it. And when the last doctor told me there was nothing more they could do, something inside me just broke. I couldn't accept it. I couldn't accept that I had sacrificed everything, love, family, motherhood, for a company, and now the universe wouldn't even let me course correct." She looked at Marcus directly. "That's when I started looking for a child. Not through proper channels, not through the right process. I started looking the way I look for everything, as a problem to be solved with resources and strategy. And when my people found you and Lily, when I read about this incredible little girl being raised by a father who was barely getting by financially, I convinced myself that I was the answer. That I could give her more. That wanting her enough entitled me to have her. She laughed bitterly. That's what money does to you, if you're not careful. It makes you believe that wanting something is the same as deserving it. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. The hallway was dim, lit by a single flickering fluorescent bulb. From inside the apartment, he could hear Lily humming a song to herself, something tuneless and happy. "I'm sorry for what you've been through," Marcus said finally. "Genuinely. I am. But Victoria, what you did, showing up at my job, sending letters, sending someone to my daughter's school, that wasn't love. That was control. That was you trying to acquire a human being because you're used to acquiring things. And my daughter is not a thing. I know that now. Do you? Because knowing it in your head and knowing it in your heart are two very different things. You spent 20 years choosing power over love, and now you're trying to use power to get love. That doesn't work. It has never worked. You can't buy your way into a family. You have to build one. And building one means being vulnerable, being present, being willing to fail and try again and fail again. It means reading the same book 400 times because your kid loves it, even though you could recite it in your sleep. It means eating cereal for dinner because that's all you can afford, and pretending it's a special treat so your daughter doesn't feel the weight of your struggle. It means showing up. Every single day. Not with a checkbook. With your heart. Victoria was fully crying now. Not the delicate, cinematic tears of a woman who knew she was being watched. These were the ugly, heaving tears of someone who had been holding something in for a very long time and had finally run out of strength to contain it. "I don't know how to do that," she whispered. "I don't know how to build something I can't control." "That's the whole point," Marcus said, and his voice was gentle now. Not soft, he wasn't the kind of man who went soft, but gentle. The way you're gentle with something fragile. You don't control love. You surrender to it. You let it change you. You let it make you uncomfortable and scared and completely out of your depth. And then you keep going anyway, because the person you love is worth more than your comfort. Victoria pressed her back against the wall and slid down until she was sitting on the hallway floor, her expensive jeans on the dingy carpet, her corporate composure completely gone. She looked up at Marcus with red-rimmed eyes. "I'm so sorry," she said. "For what I did. For how I approached this. For treating your daughter like an asset to be acquired. I was wrong. I was so wrong." Marcus looked at her for a long time. Then he did something that surprised even himself. He sat down on the floor across from her. "My mother used to say something," he said. "She used to say that the worst thing about making mistakes isn't the mistake itself. It's what you do when you realize you've made one. You can let it define you, or you can let it redirect you." What did she mean by redirect? She meant that sometimes the wrong path teaches you where the right one is. You wanted a child. That desire isn't wrong. But the way you went about it was. So now you have a choice. You can keep trying to force the world to give you what you want on your terms, or you can open yourself up to the possibility that what you need might look different from what you planned. I don't know what that looks like. Neither did I. When Janine left, I had no idea what I was doing. I was 25 years old with a baby and no clue how to be a parent. I burned the first 6 batches of formula I made because I didn't read the instructions. I put Lily's diaper on backward more times than I'll ever admit. I called the pediatrician at 2 in the morning because she had hiccups and I thought something was wrong. I was a disaster. But I was there. And being there was enough. The door cracked open behind Marcus, and a small face appeared. Lily peered into the hallway with wide, curious eyes. Daddy? Who are you talking to? Marcus turned and smiled. Just a lady who needed someone to listen, Lilybug. Go back to your coloring, okay? I'll be right in. Lily looked at Victoria, then back at her father. Is she sad, Daddy? She looks sad. Marcus glanced at Victoria, who was trying desperately to compose herself. Yeah, baby. She's a little sad. Lily considered this with the gravity that only a 6-year-old can muster. Then she disappeared back inside the apartment. A moment later, she returned with a piece of paper and handed it to Victoria. Here, Lily said. I drew this for you. It's a rainbow. Rainbows make people feel better. Victoria took the drawing with trembling hands. It was a crayon rainbow, slightly lopsided, with a yellow sun in the corner and 2 stick figures underneath, one tall and one small. At the bottom, in wobbly letters, Lily had written her name. Victoria stared at the drawing. Then she pressed it to her chest and closed her eyes, and the sound she made was something between a laugh and a sob. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, sweetheart. Lily smiled, satisfied that she had solved the problem, and went back inside. Marcus and Victoria sat in the hallway for another few minutes. Neither spoke. Sometimes silence says more than words. Finally, Victoria stood up. She carefully folded Lily's drawing and placed it in her pocket. She looked at Marcus with an expression he hadn't seen from her before, humility. I'm going to go now, she said. And I'm not going to bother you again. I promise. Marcus stood and nodded. I believe you. She turned to leave, then stopped. Marcus? Yeah. She's lucky to have you. Lily. She's the luckiest girl in the world, and she doesn't even know it. She's not lucky. She's loved. There's a difference. Victoria nodded slowly, letting that distinction sink in. Then she walked down the hallway, her heels clicking softly on the worn linoleum, and disappeared down the stairs. Marcus went back inside, locked the door, and sat down next to Lily at the kitchen table. She held up her latest drawing proudly. 2 figures, one tall and one small, standing in front of a house with a comically large chimney. That's us, Daddy. I see that. I like the chimney. It has to be big so Santa can fit. Good thinking. He pulled her onto his lap and held her close, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, feeling the solid warmth of her against his chest. Outside, the city hummed and growled, indifferent to the miracle of this ordinary moment. But Marcus wasn't indifferent. He understood what most people spend a lifetime learning, that the most extraordinary things in life look completely ordinary from the outside. Weeks passed. November turned to December. The weather grew cold, and Marcus added an extra blanket to Lily's bed and turned the apartment's temperamental heater up to its maximum setting, which was still barely adequate. He worked his shifts, packed lunches, helped with homework, read bedtime stories. The routine continued, sacred and unchanged. But something had shifted inside him. The encounter with Victoria had stirred up questions he usually kept buried. Was he enough for Lily? Could he really give her everything she needed? He knew the emotional answer, of course he could, love was enough, presence was enough. But the practical reality gnawed at him late at night when Lily was asleep and the apartment was quiet. The rent was going up in January. His truck needed new brakes. Lily was growing so fast that she needed new clothes every few months. And in the back of his mind, always, was the fear that one injury, one illness, one stroke of bad luck could bring the whole fragile structure crashing down. He was thinking about this on a cold December evening when his phone rang. He didn't recognize the number but answered anyway. Mr. Reed? This is Patricia Yoon from the Ashford Foundation. Marcus's guard went up immediately. If this is about... It's not what you think, the woman said quickly. Please, just hear me out. I'm the director of the Ashford Foundation, which is a separate entity from Ashford Global Industries. We operate independently, and our mission is to support single parents and their children. Ms. Ashford recently made a significant donation to the foundation with specific instructions that we expand our programs. We're reaching out to single parents in the community to offer support, educational scholarships for children, housing assistance, healthcare coverage, job training programs. Your name came up through our community outreach, not through Ms. Ashford directly. She has recused herself from all foundation decisions to avoid any conflict of interest. Marcus was silent for a moment. So you're telling me this has nothing to do with what happened between me and Victoria Ashford? I'm telling you that the foundation has existed for 12 years and has helped over 4,000 families. The recent expansion allows us to help more. You qualify for our programs, Mr. Reed. Your daughter qualifies for a full educational scholarship that covers tuition, books, supplies, and extracurricular activities through high school. There are no strings attached. No obligations. And absolutely no one is asking for anything in return. Marcus didn't know what to say. His throat felt tight. Can I think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need. I'll send you an information packet. He thought about it for 3 days. He talked to Sandra Okafor, who reviewed the foundation's documentation and confirmed that it was legitimate, well-established, and completely separate from Victoria's personal interests. He talked to Deshawn, who told him that refusing help when it was genuinely offered wasn't strength, it was pride. There's a difference between someone trying to buy your kid and someone trying to help your kid, Deshawn said. Don't let your pride rob Lily of an opportunity. Marcus accepted the scholarship. He also accepted the housing assistance, which moved them from their cramped apartment to a 2-bedroom unit in a safer neighborhood, still modest but with a small yard where Lily could play. He did not accept anything he felt he hadn't earned or that came with conditions. The foundation asked for nothing. They simply helped. Christmas that year was different. Not because of presents or decorations or any material improvement, though Marcus was able to buy Lily the art set she had been eyeing in the store window for months. It was different because Marcus felt, for the first time in a long time, that he wasn't carrying the weight alone. Not because someone was doing it for him, but because the path ahead was just a little less steep. On Christmas morning, Lily tore through her presents with the wild abandon of a 6-year-old, and when she got to the art set, her eyes went so wide that Marcus thought they might actually fall out of her head. She threw her arms around his neck and said, "This is the best Christmas ever, Daddy." He held her tight and whispered, "Every Christmas with you is the best Christmas ever, Lily Bug." Later that day, Marcus found an envelope in his mailbox. No return address. Inside was a card with a simple message written in elegant handwriting. "Dear Marcus, I want you to know that the Foundation's outreach to you was not orchestrated by me. When I made the donation, I made it with the understanding that I would have no involvement in how the funds were distributed. If your family was selected, it was because you qualified, not because I pulled strings. But I would be lying if I said I wasn't glad. You were right about everything. I was trying to control what should be surrendered to. I'm in therapy now. I'm exploring proper adoption channels. I'm learning to be patient, which, as you might imagine, is not my strongest quality. Your words changed something in me. Lily's rainbow changed something in me. I keep it on my refrigerator. It's the most valuable thing I own. I don't expect forgiveness, and I'm not asking for friendship. I just want you to know that your love for your daughter didn't just protect her, it taught me what I had been missing. Thank you. V. Marcus read the card twice. Then he put it in the drawer next to his bed, where he kept his mother's obituary, Lily's first pair of shoes, and the hospital bracelet from the day she was born. The small collection of things that reminded him why he got up every morning. The months that followed brought gradual, steady change. Not the dramatic, overnight transformation of a movie, but the slow, hard-won progress of real life. Marcus enrolled in a night class at the community college, studying project management. It was grueling, working all day, caring for Lily in the evening, studying after she went to bed, but he had done hard things before. Hard was his default setting. Lily thrived in her new school, which had better resources and smaller class sizes. She made friends quickly, the way children do when they're confident and secure. She started taking art classes on Saturdays, and her drawings evolved from wobbly stick figures to surprisingly detailed sketches that her teacher called remarkable for her age. Marcus also started coaching Lily's Little League soccer team, which was less about soccer and more about herding enthusiastic 6- and 7-year-olds in roughly the same direction. But it connected him to other parents, other families, and for the first time in years, his world expanded beyond the narrow corridor of work and parenthood. One of those parents was a woman named Elena Ruiz. She was a nurse at the community hospital, a single mother of a 7-year-old boy named Miguel, and she had a laugh that could fill a room like sunlight filling a dark house. She was warm where Marcus was guarded, open where he was reserved, and she had an uncanny ability to see through his stoic exterior to the man underneath. They started talking at soccer practice. Then they started having coffee after games. Then they started having dinner, the four of them, Marcus, Elena, Lily, and Miguel, at the small Italian restaurant on Maple Street that had checkered tablecloths and a jukebox that only played songs from the 80s. Marcus was terrified. Not of Elena, who was wonderful, but of opening himself up again. Janine had left a wound that had never fully healed, and the scar tissue had become part of his identity. He was the man who did it alone. The man who didn't need anyone. The man who was a fortress. But fortresses get lonely. It was Lily who pushed him forward, in her innocent, direct way. One evening, after a dinner with Elena and Miguel, as Marcus was tucking her in, she said, "Daddy, do you like Miss Elena? She's very nice, Lily-bug." "No, I mean do you like her like her? Like in the movies?" Marcus blinked. "Where did you learn about liking someone like in the movies?" "Miguel told me. He said his mom talks about you all the time and he thinks you should get married so we can be brother and sister." Marcus laughed, a real laugh, the kind that starts deep in the belly and bubbles up uncontrollably. "That's a lot of planning from two kids who still need help tying their shoes." "I can tie my shoes, Daddy. I learned last week." "Fair point." Lily looked at him seriously. "Daddy, you're always taking care of me. Who takes care of you?" The question hit him like a freight train. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Lily, I don't need anyone to." "Everyone needs someone, Daddy. You told me that. When I didn't want to play with the other kids at school, you said, everyone needs someone, Lily-bug. Remember?" He remembered. He also remembered that being outsmarted by a 6-year-old was both humbling and deeply reassuring about the future of humanity. "Yeah," he said softly. "I remember. So maybe Miss Elena can be your someone." Marcus kissed Lily's forehead and whispered, "When did you get so wise, Lily-bug?" "I learned it from you, Daddy." He walked Elena through the park the following Sunday while Lily and Miguel ran ahead, chasing each other and screeching with laughter. The autumn leaves were turning, painting the trees in shades of amber and crimson, and the air had the crisp, clean quality that makes you feel like the world is renewing itself. "I need to tell you something," Marcus said, and his voice had the awkward, halting quality of a man who was more comfortable lifting steel beams than expressing emotions. "Okay," Elena said, looking at him with those warm brown eyes that made his walls feel flimsy. "I'm not good at this. At opening up. At letting people in. Lily's mom left when Lily was a baby, and I've been doing everything alone ever since. And I told myself that alone was fine. That alone was safe. But it's not fine. It's just, alone." Elena waited, patient and present. "I like you, Elena. A lot. And it scares the hell out of me. Because the last time I let someone into my life, they walked out of it, and I had to pick up the pieces while holding a baby who didn't understand why her mother wasn't there. Marcus. I'm not done. I need to say this before I lose the nerve. He took a breath. I don't have a lot to offer. I'm a construction worker who's taking night classes. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment. I drive a truck that sounds like it's gasping for air. But I'm a good father. And I think, if you give me a chance, I could be a good partner. Not perfect. Not fancy. Not billionaire material. Just present. Consistent. Reliable. And here. Elena stopped walking and turned to face him. She reached up and placed her hand on his cheek, the way you touch something precious. Marcus Reed, she said, I'm a nurse. I work double shifts. I spend my weekends doing laundry and packing lunches and trying to remember if Miguel has a dentist appointment on Tuesday or Thursday. I'm not looking for a billionaire. I'm looking for a man who shows up. And from what I've seen, that's exactly who you are. He kissed her. Right there in the park, with the autumn leaves falling around them and 2 kids screaming in the background about who could run faster. It was messy and imperfect and absolutely, completely right. Their families merged gradually, the way rivers converge, slowly at first, then with increasing momentum until you can't tell where one begins and the other ends. Dinners became a regular thing. Weekends became adventures. Lily and Miguel became inseparable, bickering and laughing in equal measure, the way siblings do. Marcus finished his project management certification and was promoted to site supervisor at the construction company, which came with a significant raise and, more importantly, a more predictable schedule. He was home for dinner most nights. He made it to every soccer game, every art show, every parent-teacher conference. And through it all, he remained the constant in Lily's life. The unwavering, unchanging presence that anchored her world. He still read her bedtime stories, though the books were getting longer and the stories more complex. He still packed her lunch every morning, though she now had opinions about what went in it. He still stood at the school entrance every morning and watched until she disappeared inside, and he still waited those few extra seconds, just to be sure. Nearly 2 years after the encounter in the hallway, Marcus received an unexpected invitation. It was from the Ashford Foundation, inviting him to speak at their annual gala as a program success story. He almost threw it away. Public speaking terrified him more than any construction site hazard. But Elena convinced him that his story could help other families, other single parents who were struggling in silence. You don't have to be polished, she said. You just have to be honest. The gala was held in a grand ballroom at the Ashford Hotel downtown, a room so opulent that Marcus felt like an imposter the moment he walked in. Elena was beside him in a blue dress that made her look like a movie star, and Lily was there too, in a new dress she had picked out herself, holding Mr. Wrinkles because she refused to go anywhere important without him. Marcus stood at the podium and looked out at a sea of faces, donors, philanthropists, community leaders, foundation staff. His hands were sweating, and his heart was hammering so hard he was sure the microphone would pick it up. Then he saw Lily in the front row, giving him a thumbs up with both hands, and he smiled. Good evening, he began, his voice steady despite the earthquake in his chest. My name is Marcus Reed. I'm a construction supervisor. I'm a night school graduate. I'm a soccer coach, though my team hasn't won a game yet, so don't get too excited. Laughter rippled through the crowd. But the most important thing I am, the thing that defines everything else, is a father. I'm a father to a girl named Lily, who is 6, no, wait, she's 8 now. She keeps growing, and I keep losing track. He paused and looked at his daughter. She grinned at him, gap-toothed and fearless. A couple of years ago, someone very powerful came into my life and tried to take Lily away from me. Not through force, but through money. She believed, and I think she genuinely believed, that she could give Lily a better life than I could. Better schools. Better clothes. Better opportunities. And on paper, she was probably right. I couldn't compete with private jets and penthouse apartments and bank accounts with more zeros than I could count. The room was silent now. Every eye was on him. But here's what I've learned, and it's the most important thing I know: a child doesn't need a perfect life. A child needs a present parent. A child needs someone who kneels down to their level and listens like what they're saying is the most important thing in the world, because to them, it is. A child needs someone who shows up on the hard days, not just the easy ones. Someone who says, "I love you," with their actions, every single day, even when they're tired, even when they're broke, even when the world is trying to convince them they're not enough. He felt his voice thicken with emotion, but he pushed through. I'm not rich. I'll probably never be rich. My truck still makes a weird noise when I turn left. My apartment is nothing fancy. But my daughter has never gone a single day without knowing she is loved. She has never gone to bed wondering if someone would be there in the morning. And she has a refrigerator full of drawings and a stuffed elephant named Mr. Wrinkles and a father who would walk through fire for her without a second thought. He looked out at the crowd. Some people were wiping their eyes. Others were nodding. To every single parent in this room, or listening to this, or struggling right now in a quiet apartment after their kid has gone to bed, you are enough. You are more than enough. Your love is not less than because your bank account is less than. Your presence is not worth less because you can't afford a private school. The fact that you are there, that you show up, that you try, that is everything. That is the whole world to your child. Don't let anyone, no matter how powerful or wealthy, tell you otherwise. He stepped back from the podium. The room erupted in applause, not the polite, obligatory applause of a formal event, but a thundering, standing ovation that shook the chandeliers. Lily jumped out of her seat and ran to the stage. Marcus scooped her up, and she wrapped her arms around his neck and whispered, "That was awesome, Daddy." "You think so?" "I know so." From the back of the room, standing near the exit, Victoria Ashford watched. She was not in her usual power suit. She wore a simple black dress, and beside her, holding her hand with the tentative trust of a child who was still learning what home meant, was a 4-year-old girl with dark curls and wide eyes. Victoria had adopted her through proper channels 6 months earlier, a little girl named Sophie who had been in foster care since birth. Victoria caught Marcus's eye across the crowded room. She didn't approach. She didn't need to. She simply nodded, a small, quiet acknowledgement that traveled the distance between them like a bridge. And Marcus nodded back. Some lessons take years to learn and a lifetime to practice. Victoria was learning hers. Marcus had lived his. Later that night, after the gala, after the congratulations and the handshakes and the drive home, after Elena had put Miguel to bed in the next room, Marcus sat on the edge of Lily's bed for their nightly ritual. "Story time, Lilybug?" "Actually, Daddy, can I tell you a story tonight?" "Sure, sweetheart." Lily sat up, cross-legged, Mr. Wrinkles in her lap, and with the absolute seriousness of a seasoned storyteller, she began. Once upon a time, there was a dad. He wasn't a king or a superhero or anything like that. He was just a dad. But he was the best dad in the whole world. Because no matter what happened, no matter how hard things got, he always showed up. And his little girl never had to be scared, because she knew, she always knew, that he would be there. And they lived happily ever after. The end. Marcus's eyes were burning. His throat was tight. He pulled Lily into a hug so fierce that she giggled and said, "Daddy, you're squishing me." "Sorry, Lilybug." "It's okay. I like your squishes." He tucked her in, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Love you, Lilybug. Love you more, Daddy. Love you most." Impossible. He stood in her doorway, the way he did every night, watching her drift off to sleep, this small, miraculous person who had given his life meaning and purpose and direction. And he thought about all the things money could buy, the mansions, the cars, the trips around the world, and he knew, with a certainty that went beyond logic, beyond argument, beyond anything that could be measured or quantified, that none of it, absolutely none of it, was worth more than this. A child sleeping safely. A father standing guard. A love that no amount of money could purchase. That was the whole story. That was the whole point. That was everything. And if you're still watching, if this story moved something in your heart, let it remind you of a truth that the world tries very hard to make us forget. The most valuable thing you can give another person is not your money, not your status, not your accomplishments. It is your time. Your presence. Your unwavering, stubborn, irrational, beautiful decision to show up, day after day, and love someone more than you love your own comfort. That is what Marcus Reed gave Lily. And it was worth more than $5 billion. If this story touched your heart, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to this channel, because we tell stories here that remind you what matters, not the things you own, but the people you hold close. Until next time, take care of each other.